Why did Rome's greatest general, Julius Caesar, get betrayed and assassinated by his closest allies? March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March. The most powerful man in Rome, Julius Caesar, walks into the Senate, his red cloak flowing behind him. He is invincible. A god in human form, the Republic is in his hands. And yet in just moments, he will be stabbed 23 times by the very people he trusted most. But why? How did the most brilliant general in Roman history, a man who conquered vast lands, crushed his enemies, and bent the Senate to his will, fail to see the knives hidden behind their smiles? Why did his closest allies, men he had fought alongside, men whose lives he had saved, turn on him in a brutal frenzy of betrayal? Was it jealousy? Fear? A desperate attempt to save the dying Republic? Or was Caesar's ego simply too big for Rome to contain? And what about Brutus, his adopted son? Was he a hero, a patriot, or just another pawn in the deadliest political game in history? This is the story of power, paranoia, backstabbing, literally, and one of the most infamous betrayals in history. A story of ambition so great it reshaped the world forever. Because when Rome played politics, the stakes were always life or death. Stay with us as we unravel the shocking conspiracy, the secret meetings, the final words of Caesar himself, and the unintended consequences that would turn Rome upside down. And the biggest question of all, did Julius Caesar's ghost get the last laugh? The streets of Rome are alive with whispers. The Senate House stands tall in the Forum, its marble columns gleaming under the morning sun. Inside, history is about to change forever. Julius Caesar, the greatest general Rome has ever seen, is on his way to a Senate meeting. He walks with the confidence of a man who has conquered nations, crushed enemies, and bent Rome itself to his will. His crimson toga flows behind him, a symbol of his power and his godlike status. But what he doesn't know is this: nearly 60 senators, including his closest friends and allies, are waiting inside, with daggers hidden beneath their robes. In just a few moments, Caesar will fall, stabbed 23 times, betrayed by the very people he trusted most. How did it come to this? To understand why Caesar was murdered, we need to go back to when he was just a young and ambitious Roman noble. Born in 100 BC, Julius Caesar was not just any Roman. He came from an old but relatively poor aristocratic family. But what he lacked in wealth, he made up for in charm, wit, and ruthless political ambition. At 25, he was kidnapped by pirates. Instead of panicking, Caesar laughed at them. He told them they had demanded too low a ransom for someone as important as him, and insisted they increase the price. When the ransom was paid, he hunted them down and had them all crucified. Lesson learned: never mess with Caesar. Caesar was a master of war and politics. He charmed the people, won battles, and outmaneuvered his rivals. In 59 BC, he formed the first triumvirate with Pompey the Great and Crassus, an uneasy alliance that ruled Rome. In 5850 BC, he waged the Gallic Wars, conquering modern-day France and slaughtering 1 million people in the process. He became insanely powerful. In 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River, igniting a civil war with Pompey. Rome erupted into chaos. In 48 BC, he defeated Pompey at the Battle of Pharsalus. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was promptly assassinated by the Egyptians trying to impress Caesar. Spoiler: Caesar was not impressed. In 46 BC, Caesar returned to Rome as its undisputed ruler. But his enemies were watching. Then, he made his biggest mistake. Caesar did something no Roman had done before. He took too much power. Declared himself dictator for life. Big mistake. Romans loved democracy, or at least the illusion of it. Treated the Senate like his personal assistant. Even bigger mistake. Senators were used to being the power players. Now, they were just decoration. Flirted with the idea of becoming king. The biggest mistake of all. Rome had murdered its last king 500 years earlier. They weren't about to get another. At one public event, Mark Antony tried to place a crown on Caesar's head. The crowd booed, loudly. Caesar refused it 3 times, probably to test the waters, but the damage was done. His enemies believed he wanted to become king of Rome. And in Rome, kings didn't retire, they got assassinated. The ringleaders of the plot, Marcus Junius Brutus, the most shocking traitor. Caesar had spared Brutus's life in battle and treated him like a son. Gaius Cassius Longinus hated Caesar for stealing his power. He was the mastermind. Decimus Brutus, different Brutus, but also a backstabber, a close friend of Caesar but turned against him. Over 60 senators. Many joined because they feared Caesar would make himself king. The plan? Lure Caesar to the Senate house and kill him. March 15, 44 BC. The Ides of March. Caesar's wife Calpurnia had a bad dream the night before. She begged him not to go. Something terrible will happen, she warned. Caesar laughed it off. But the signs were everywhere. A fortune teller had once warned him, beware the Ides of March. That morning, the same fortune teller saw Caesar in the streets and whispered, the Ides of March have come. Caesar smirked. Yes, but they are not gone. Arrogance, the final mistake. At the Senate house, the trap was set. The senators gathered around him. Tullius Cimber suddenly grabbed Caesar's toga. That was the signal. Then Cassius struck first. The dagger sank into Caesar's side. He gasped in shock. Then came another stab, and another, and another. Caesar fought back, trying to escape. But then he saw Brutus, his closest friend, his son. Et tu, Brute, he whispered. Even you, Brutus? And then he stopped fighting. 23 stab wounds later, Caesar collapsed, blood pooling around him. He pulled his toga over his head. Julius Caesar, the greatest general Rome had ever known, was dead. The assassins thought they had saved Rome, that the people would rejoice. They were wrong. Rome erupted into chaos. The assassins had no plan for what came next. Instead, Mark Antony and Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, turned the people against them. By 42 BC, Brutus and Cassius were both dead, defeated in battle and committing suicide. By 27 BC, Caesar's heir Octavian became the first Roman emperor, Augustus. The Republic? Gone forever. The assassination of Caesar, meant to save Rome, instead sealed its fate as an empire. Power is dangerous. The more you take, the more enemies you make. Betrayal always comes from those closest to you. If a fortune teller warns you, maybe listen. History has a sense of irony. Caesar's murder didn't prevent tyranny, it created it. If you love this epic tale of power, betrayal, and bloody backstabbing, then make sure to subscribe to European Battle. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our next mind-blowing historical documentaries. Because history is never just black and white. It's red. Lots and lots of red. See you in the next episode.